sneak an extra little discussion lesson in here before we actually get into concurrency. And that is because I need to be honest. I have to come forward with the truth about migrations here, right? So this is lesson 11.0 or step 11.0, right? Before we get to point one, where we actually do with the concurrency and triggers is what it comes down to. The truth about migrations. What are they? Well, a great way to incrementally make changes, try out design, modifications and so on. Okay. Often we start off using these in the earlier stages of development process and so on and so forth, right? We can give the command update database after we create new migrations, and that brings it up to the latest one. If we don't specify a migration, that brings us to the latest, right? Just want to point out that we've always had the ability to specify the migration we want to go back to or go forward to, right? So we can actually roll back and forward through a series of migrations we've created. Never demonstrated that in this class this time around, so let me just do that now. Actually, this is one of the earlier versions. I picked it because we have at least 3 different migrations in here, right? Our initial one when we added the history, and then when we added the appointments, the medical history and appointments and so on, right? So we have a few different migrations we can look at, right? So each one of them has, some changes that build on the changes in the previous migration. So at this point in time, okay, if I come into the Package Manager console and get that up and going here, might make use of my common commands reference to make it easy for me, right? Now let's just check. Are we up to our migrations? I can always do this to make totally sure. Just checking. Of course, it does a build, which I probably should have done already. Oh, there we go. See, my up and my down are empty. So I know my migrations are up to date. Okay. So yeah, I can delete the just checking migration. I don't need it. Okay. Or I can leave it there. Doesn't matter at this point in time. But I want to point out this. If I do update database, right? Just save a bit of typing. Update database. Now, right now, it will take the database that exists and make sure that it's up to date with everything that we have in place. Maybe I'll even delete the database first just to kind of show that it starts right from scratch, right? Okay, so then I give my update database command. Notice that we're getting the code there to create all the different tables and everything, right? I'm not going to scroll back through all of it, but everything is being created because we've applied all of our migrations, right? What else can I do though? Well, maybe I'm going to clean up the screen here a little bit. Close all but this. There we go. If I bring that back up, when I say update database, I can go, watch this carefully. Let me bring it up a little bit. Dash migration. What migration do I want? Well, I'll pick history. Notice I don't have to give that whole timestamp, thank goodness, right? I can just use the name that I gave it. You can also use an index number as well, but I usually just use the name, right? So what is it going to do? Okay, well, look at that. What did it do? I will bring this up so we can see it better. Okay, notice that what it did is it actually executed some commands, basically getting some data, what it needs from the migration history, right? And then down here, uh, reverting migration. So we figure out, oh, okay, well, to go back to this one, we need to revert migration appointment. So look at that, isn't that clever? Okay, so you can go forward and back to your migrations. Now, if I were to, once again, I could go back to the initial, right? Or if I specifically wanted to go to appointment, now you see I should have left that just checking one because then it would have shown that I only went forward to appointment instead of doing all of them, right? But anyway, you get the idea, right? So we can go forward and back to migrations. Great thing, right? Yeah, but we haven't been doing it really to some degree because why? We've been having this line of code, EnsureCreated, okay, at the top of our initializer, right? So we haven't really been applying migrations in every situation because that command actually bypasses them altogether. Okay, what it does is if the database isn't there, if it's there, it doesn't do anything. If the database isn't there, it will recreate it according to the current state of the model as defined in the DB context. In other words, right? Uh, I can close this now. What it will do is here when we bring up the medical office initializer, right? So right now I have the ensure deleted, ensure created, okay? We're going to introduce this command in just a moment. So what I would do is I can even show you if I even deleted the migrations folder. What? Don't panic, right? Because of the ensure deleted, ensure created, when I run, it's going to delete the database. And when I hit ensure created, it's going to say, oh, it's not there. And basically what it does is it looks at the entire, right? It's based on the medical office context. So it looks at all these DB sets, everything else we have in the Fluent API, and it basically does the same thing all in one operation that all of those earlier migrations did. It recreates the database exactly according to the current state of the model as defined in our medical office context, in this case, because that's the context we're talking about, right? So let's go ahead and do that just to see what happens. No migrations in place, okay? And yet they should come up. I should successfully see data and should be able to run, and away we go. There's my patients and doctors and everything else, right? Without migrations altogether. So that's what we've been doing, and that's, maybe caused some confusion. I apologize for that. I probably should have clarified this earlier, but hey, at least we're doing it now. So that's what the EnsureCreated does. Now, the trouble is though, of course, I could go in now and recreate my migration, right? In fact, I'm going to do that to make sure I actually have it in place before I go on. Bear with me. I know this is a little boring. I probably shouldn't have deleted it all, but that's okay. Do I have my common commands available still? Yeah, I should under right here. So I'm even going to go right back to make my initial migration, right? So the code is generating now because I deleted the migrations. This is basically the same thing that EnsureCreated just did. Everything from scratch, everything according to how it's defined in our DB context has been recreated. The difference is here, I can actually go in and make changes. Now, we've never done that. Okay, I'll be honest with you, I've never actually had you. Some online tutorials will have you do that. They'll have you create the migration, go in and make a few modifications here, right? For example, you could here this business referential action restrict. If you wanted to change it to cascade delete, you could just come into the migration and change it. Okay. Of course, the problem is if you actually recreate these migrations at some point in the future, then the manual changes you made in here would be lost, right? So, hey, there's more than one way to do things. You just got to be careful about what approach you're taking. But some tutorials do actually have you modify your migrations, right? When we come back, actually, I'm going to do my update database. Actually, I won't. Because what we're going to do is come over here, right? So instead of ensure created, I'm going to comment that out. And alternatively, this command, migrate, right? So notice again, I'm still deleting the database first. I'm going to delete the database, but when I hit .migrate, okay, as I mentioned here in the copy paste file, right? Okay. If we use this command instead, it will specifically call for migrations to be applied, right? So all the migrations I have will be applied when I do that, okay? So, you might still have ensure deleted and migrate and, comment out deleted if you don't really want to delete it each time. But the main advantage is this will force it to use the saved migrations as opposed to just bypassing it all and doing it just from the current state of the model, right? And later on, actually in the next step, the next lesson we're going to, we have to make sure that our migrations are applied in order to do some extra stuff because we're going to be creating objects that can't be scaffolded in the migration itself by the system automatically, right? Okay, so I created my migration. I'm not going to update the database. I'll let this command do that and we'll make sure it actually works. Drum roll. Okay, look, there we go. All up to snuff and running away, right? So this did its job, okay? But it specifically applied the migrations here as opposed to just bypassing them and building the database based on the current state of the actual DB context, right? And the model represented in the DB context. So, it's an important thing going forward. It hasn't mattered much up to this stage, but I thought it should clarify as well instead of saying, don't do this, right? I wanted to actually clarify the reasons why. And in future, I might not even bother, other than a quick demo, having students do this at all. We might go right to making sure we do the dot migrate. But now you're aware of both, and there's reasons why we might, in some cases, use one versus the other. Bada bing.